Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session. We're delighted to have you join us in an hour-long discussion to learn, share, and empower changemakers like you around the world. Next slide. This is just an introduction to who we are, our YouthLead team. We have Cassandra Jesse, who is the Director of Youth Power Learning. We have Maria Brintelmeyer, our YouthLead Coordinator. Sarah Sladen is the Director of the Youth Economic Opportunities Network and our Senior Youth Engagement Advisor. There's myself, Rachel Stepka. I'm the Communications Manager for Youth Power Learning and YouthLead. We have Abalaji Amitagun, who's the Knowledge Management and Communications Atlas Core Fellow. In Kenya, Anya Dike from Atlas Core Fellow as well. He's a Knowledge Management and Communications. And we have Nalima Rout, who is our consultant for Youth Power Learning and YouthLead. So to offer you some background about who we are, YouthLead is a global network of more than 6,500 young changemakers from around the globe that begin as an activity under the USAID-funded Youth Power Learning Project. Youth Power Learning is focused on sharing knowledge, learning, tools, best practices, and what works in positive youth development. Positive youth development is defined as including 4 components: that youth have assets and should have the ability to leverage those assets through agency, as well as the ability to contribute to positive change for themselves and their communities. And to do this, youth should be surrounded by an enabling environment that supports them. When it began, Youth Power Learning's main focus was on youth supporting organizations, including organizations that were implementing youth programs or carrying out youth development research. So the YouthLead Vision is to serve as a global hub for young changemakers ages 15 to 35, enabling them to maximize their impact through networking, mentoring, and access to information. The platform offers a great opportunity for youth from different countries and different networks to inspire and learn from each other, connect beyond their traditional circles, and benefit from many diverse resources and information. The site is available in English, Spanish, and French, and with Google Translate on every page, it's available to a larger group of youth. Next slide. Before we start the webinar, I want to share our thoughts with the world, especially we continue to grapple with the impact of the coronavirus. In response to the challenges presented by the pandemic, YouthLead is leveraging the power of its network of young changemakers to share critical information and to channel their skills and leadership to help communities around the world get educated about how to stop the spread of the virus. So we've created several resource pages with information. We continue to update that as we learn more about what is helpful to our youth network. So we have a campaign going on. So it's about fighting COVID-19. So we invite YouthLead members and other youth networks to join the fight against the spread of the coronavirus by promoting hand washing, social distancing, and tackling misinformation. So this is part of our YouthLead Acts of Good campaign. So we invite you to make a pledge on our website. We have a survey link on our website to make a pledge to say how you will join in the fight against COVID-19. And this campaign will be ongoing for the next few months. It says now on May 15th, but that date is no longer correct. We'll be continuing on for this for at least the next 2 months. And if you share an act of good with us, we'll be featuring it on our YouthLead Acts of Good page, which is aimed at highlighting the role of young people as leaders for positive change around the world. And we also ask for youth-serving organizations to share tools or resources that young people can use to take action in their own communities to combat the impact of the COVID-19 virus. Next slide, please. And with that, I will hand it over to Abalaji to introduce today's webinar speakers.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. And thank you, Rachel, for the introduction. I'm also happy to have various you all joining from different countries. For today's webinar, we'll be talking about the YouthLead social issue campaigns, which is on the topic of COVID-19 and the environment. So the YouthLead social issue campaigns are a team-based social short campaign led by the YouthLead Ambassadors. The goal of the campaign is to provide YouthLead Ambassadors an avenue to champion a social issue that they're particularly passionate about. So on this particular topic, we have Philbert, our YouthLead Ambassador Philbert Angayo from Kenya. And then we also have our YouthLead Ambassador Kushal from Nepal. As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has a devastating and catastrophic impact on health and economies on the global scale. However, we know that the world continues to look for hope, and amid the crisis, the environment seems to give us a glimpse of hope for the future ahead. In a quote by Andersen, the executive director of UNEP, he says visible positive impacts, whether through improved air quality or reduced greenhouse gases emissions, are but temporary because they come on the back of tragic economic slowdown and human distress. Next slide. So our speaker today are Kushal Neraki, our YouthLead Ambassador from Nepal, and of course, Philbert Angayo. Kushal is passionate about empowering youth and communities in the field of agriculture and the environment through knowledge sharing, training events, and campaigns. He's the winner of the Eco Hero Award 2018 and believes in bringing innovation to our community, to communities using his own efforts. Our second speaker is Philbert, who is an environmental youth champion, passionate about the empowerment of Africa and African youths and the rural communities on environmental awareness, conservation, agriculture, governance through innovative thought leadership, also sharing his own skills and also organizing skill building sessions or on participatory experimental learning. Like I said earlier, on this webinar, our speakers will be discussing or telling us about what the youth can learn about the pandemic and the environment, and how they're also highlighting their various works or what work they're doing in their local communities in advocating for a for a safer environment during the COVID-19 pandemic and even post COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to hand over to Kushal now. Kushal, over to you. I'll be unmuting your mic so you can go ahead and speak. Hi, Kushal.
Hello, thank you,
Yes.
Abelaji.
Yes.
Greetings to everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kushal Naharki, YouthLead Ambassador from Nepal. I'd like to start with a quote from Daisaku, who said, "History has always been shaped by the power of the youth. Youth generation poised to dominate the workforce are more socially conscious nowadays. They are more demanding in terms of environment and how the environment contributes to the life. As young people constitute a large part of the world population, it is necessary for youth generation to act in the field of environment too. We can take the recent example of Greta Thunberg, whose voice for the climate action has been heard by the world. It is necessary for us to take the decision and the youth to lead from the front, because it is the consequences of the current environmental decision that we have to face more than our elders, and future generation would too be affected by our generation. Youth people can play an active role in protecting and improving the environment. We have a powerful potential in youth, and we must have courage to change and practice so that we may direct our power towards good. Youth have special concerns and special responsibilities too for saving the environment. Can we move to the next slide, Abelaji? Hello? Abelaji, are you there?
Hi, Kushal. This is Ikenna.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Now I'd like to highlight my eco journey with you and some of my environmental projects. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I was fascinated studying about ecosystem and environment since my school days. I think you moved a slide ahead too. Can you go back? I was really fascinated studying about the ecosystems and environment since my school days, and used to be deeply sad and hearing about the pollutions we create to our planet, and would be very happy to participate in the events like planting trees. Moving forward with the participation in Lomjung Climate Convergence in 2017 and winning the Hidden Eco Hero Award in 2018. I have worked as the environmental platform of UNEP for Tunja Eco Generation as regional ambassador for Asia for 3 years. Along with being co-chair in UNEP community in Pokhara Model United Nations 2020, I have been associated with several youth organizations like Youth Innovation Network, Wiper Nepal, Youth Thinker Society, Warriors Nepal, ATO Climate Educate, and Eco Generation, with recently being YouthLead, working in the field of environment, agriculture, and youth empowerment. Talking about my environmental projects, Avlaji, can we move to the next slide with the environmental projects? Discussing about my first environmental project, it is Sustainable Environmental Program and Go for Green. These are the school-led awareness campaigns with several events like Eco Quiz, Eco Voice of Children and Youth, and environmental motivation, along with formation of environmental eco clubs at the schools, so that children and youth can raise the voice for the environment. The next campaign is Waste Bucket. It itself says, keep it in till you find a bin. It is for the management of the waste that we produce, so that we do not scatter it over here and there, creating a pollution. And the next campaign is Small Act, Great Impact. Our small actions to the environment can have a great impact altogether, creating or create ripples of strong to create a better environment for us and the future generation. So each of our small acts matter. Next campaign is about no food wastage, which deals with the food security and the food waste that we have been doing, and composting of the degradable food waste. And Gift a Tree This Birthday is a campaign led by me, which asks for the people to gift a tree on their birthday and on their friends and relatives' birthday. So instead of the fancy gift that we have been currently giving, this is a green initiative to celebrate a green birthday. Apart from that, I have been launching several online campaigns like EcoFact series, Eco Dictionary, environmental related online competitions, and creative challenge on the World Environment Day. Next slide, please. Entering on the topic of today's discussion, I would like to explain how did the COVID-19 emerge into what it has been as a pandemic today. While the COVID-19 pandemic is still rapidly evolving, the world is already facing the effects that have spread far beyond our individual health and the well-being. The shock to the global economy and to the lives of the workers and the families around the world will be felt for some time even more. Discussing about the coronavirus and COVID-19. COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. Coronaviruses are the large family of viruses which causes illness to the humans and the animals. In humans, several coronaviruses are known to cause respiratory infections ranging from common cold to more severe diseases like MERS and SARS. MERS refers to Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, whereas SARS refers to Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. COVID-19 is the infectious disease caused by the coronavirus, which is recently discovered and its outbreak began in Wuhan, China in December 2019. I think most of us don't know, but around 60% of all the infectious diseases to the humans are genetic. Genetic means the diseases are transferred from animals. Apart from that, 75% of all the emerging infectious diseases comes from animals. Zoonosis that emerged or re-emerged recently are Ebola virus, bird flu, MERS, Nipah virus, SARS, Zika virus, and the recently being coronavirus. They are all linked to the human activity. The Ebola outbreak in the West Africa was the result of forest losses leading to the closer contact between the wildlife and the human settlements. And the emergence of the avian influenza was linked to the intensive poultry farming. And the Nip virus was linked to the intensification of the pig farming. Can you move to the next slide, where we'll be discussing about the factors that causes the zoonosis emergence. There are different factors that causes the zoonosis emergence. Ecosystem integrity underlines human health and the development. Human-induced environmental changes modify wildlife population structure and reduce biodiversity, resulting in the new environmental conditions that favor particular hosts, vectors, or pathogens. The interaction of human or livestock with wildlife exposes them to the risks of spillover of potential pathogens. For many zoonosis, livestock serves as the epidemiological bridge between wildlife and human infection. The drivers of the zoonotic device emergence are changes in the environment, usually the result of human activities that we have been doing, ranging from land use change to the changing climate, and the changes in the animals or the human host, and changes in the pathogen with the increasing advancement in the biotechnology and the science. From the viewpoint of the environmental community, it is important to address the multiple and often interacting threats of the ecosystem and wildlife to prevent the zoonosis from emerging, including habitat loss and fragmentation, illegal trade, pollution, invasive species, and increasingly climate change. Ecosystem integrity can help regulate diseases by supporting the diversity of the species so that it is more difficult for one pathogen to spill over, amplify, or dominate. Can you move to the next slide? Coronavirus. Is coronavirus a message from nature to the human beings? Nature is sending us the wake-up call with the COVID-19 pandemic, it seems like. Alongside, there has been previous messages from the nature too. We can imagine the increasing heat records of the world to recent Australian bushfire. While our immediate priority must be to protect people from COVID-19 and prevent its spread, our long-term response must tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. To prevent further genetic disease outbreak, the destruction of the nature for farming, mining, and the housing must come to the end. COVID-19 outbreak was just a clear warning shot, given that the far more deadly disease existed in the wildlife and that today's civilization was playing with a fire. The deforestation and other land use changes, intensified agricultural system that we are practicing, the climate changes, antimicrobial resistance are some of the factors causing zoonosis emergence. Humans and the nature are the part of one connected system, and the nature provides the food, medicine, water, clean air, and many other benefits that have allowed the people to thrive. And Doreen, this was the statement quoted from the Doreen Robinson by UNEP, and I would like to quote the another statement by UNEP Executive Director Inger Andersen, who said, "We are intimately interconnected with nature, whether we like it or we don't like it. If we don't take care of the nature, we can't take care of ourselves because we live in an ecosystem which we are bounded by the nature." Can you move to the next slide? In this slide, we'll be discussing about the positive changes that has occurred due to the COVID-19 pandemics. Although COVID-19 pandemic has resulted into the devastating nature around the world, small affirmative changes have also been seen, and it can be taken as the next side of the coin. We can take the example of the reduced air pollutions in the China, to the dolphins arriving in the rivers of Italy, to the wildlife moving around the roads of the United Kingdom. They are the positive changes that the COVID-19 has brought. It seems like COVID-19 was the message from the nature that brought the affirmative changes to the nature, reducing the pollution and the greenhouse gases. But the major question that arises now is it sustainable? The answer would definitely be no. It is not the change we are causing, but just holding the activities for some time or the period. As soon as we find the solution to COVID-19 permanently, we'll again start our normal life, where the same pollutions that were caused in the past would restart, and our environmental degradation and the activities might be taken to the same level. Can we move to the next slide? And discussing about the impacts of COVID-19, although small affirmative change can be noticed in the factor of environment, but we can't take that as the affirmative change only, because accepting the deaths of the vulnerable and extreme restriction on average life is not a realistic or reliable way to fight environmental challenges. There are different ways that we can get the same result without impacting the current life of the people. The impact that COVID-19 has caused to human has been great and devastating. Apart from that, health activities and health services are the prior need in the current situation. But what we must not forget is a lot of health waste and healthcare waste will be produced during this period too. We must be able to manage those waste properly, because we can't ignore the environment during the pandemic period too. Apart from that, food insecurity will also be a major trouble, since most of the industries are closed during lockdowns and transportation has been stopped too. And mental health of the people and the well-being seems to be a key issue during this period. From the YouthLead side, we recently had a webinar on the mental health issue, and all the recordings of this are available on the YouthLead website. You can visit it for the information. And economic breakdown seems to be a major problem as we are having the lockdown all over the world. Can we move to the next slide? We can take this period not as just a lockdown period, but a change-making time. This is the time for all the young change makers to step forward and to make changes in themselves. The choice we make now affects the future. In the midst of the global crisis, we believe that this is also the time for the innovation, for finding new and a better way to tackle our global challenges. We can go back to the world as it was before, or deal decisively with those issues that make us all unnecessarily vulnerable to the crisis. Crises like COVID-19 shows the urgency to promote the necessary transformation from our society to survive in the 21st century. It can be a good reminder of the nature's call that in any breakdown, there is always a chance for the breakthrough. If we reduce our impact on the nature, she will return the favor. It can be clearly seen in the current examples of the environmental progress that we have been making in the quality of the year around the world due to the lockdown. Along with that, the improvement in the environment systems. It's the perfect time for the people to realize on a global level that flattening the curve of the climate change and the environmental destruction is necessary. We know from the social science researches that interventions are more effectively if they take place during the moments of the change. It is the perfect time for us to formulate and refine our ideas and post the planning and strategy to place and make this happen possible. Let's move to the next slide. Now we'll be discussing on the roles of youths during the COVID-19. I have created the mnemonics called break. Let's break the COVID-19. How can the youths fight during the COVID-19 situation, as youth are the major force and the change makers? The B stands for be a part of the solution. We can be a part of the solution, maintaining the social distances and working from the work, along with using the preventive measures of the COVID-19. R stands for the recognition of our strengths. We all have strengths, and some of them are hidden that has not been exposed yet. It is the time for us to realize what we are capable of. And E stands for enter in the Stop the Spread campaign, which is the campaign led by the YouthLead to stop the spread. Along with that, YouthLead has also launched a new campaign called YouthLead Acts of Good. You can participate in those campaigns and show how you have been acting in your community level to fight against the COVID-19 situation. A stands for aware people about the COVID-19. You can aware the community people around you through the social medias or any other means of communication, and create a better lifestyle in a local community preventing the COVID-19 pandemics. And K stands for keep away the misinformation. We must follow the guidelines of the World Health Organization or the official authorities of our region, and should not spread the misinformation, as misinformation may lead to another crisis during this global emergency. Next slide, please. In the next slide, we'll be discussing on how we can stay connected to the nature during the COVID-19. Although we are maintaining social distances currently, we can work together. Together does not mean that we need to be together physically. Our actions together at our own homes defines that we are together in this current situation. And we must be together and stay connected with the nature. Here I have mentioned few of the ways how we can we can remain connected with the nature. The first one being we can watch environmental related movies, documentaries, series, and read books. There are plenty of shows, series, and films out there which addresses the climate crisis, the threats faced by our oceans, pollutions, and give us the inspiration on how we can try to help. Most of might have watched the movie Revenant of Leonardo DiCaprio, or the Disney animation movies like Finding Nemo or Finding Dory. There are several movies like that, which gives us knowledge about the environment along with entertainment during this period. Some of you being Wall-E, Life of Pi, and some of the movies I mentioned before. You can also build a kitchen garden, flower garden at your house and keep yourself busy. Along with that, building a kitchen garden will ensure you will always get fresh vegetables along with the situation what we might be facing in the future or currently. You can also keep the environment around you clean and green. As the old Earth Day, which was celebrated on April 22nd, was celebrated digitally this time due to the COVID-19 pandemics. So we can go digital and try eco activities online and at home. Eco activities like making reuse and recycle plastic rubbish and trying to learn about composting and integrated pest management and some of the options that we can apply to stay connected to the nature during this COVID-19. Next slide, please. Now, what is the next? What will happen after the COVID-19 pandemics is a major question that might be in our head currently. Are we going to the same lifestyle that we're using in the past? As we inch from wartime response to the building back better, we need to take on board the environmental signals and what they mean for our future and the well-being, because COVID-19 is by no means a silver lining for the environment as quoted by UN environmental chief. When we get past this crisis, we will have several options, like we can go back to the normal lifestyle or we can move into a further and the better lifestyle. Post COVID-19 world will not be the same one as we know before, but it can be a better one. If we make this time as a change making time for the future time, we can live a better world. This time the world needs a ray of hope, and we will need to rebuild the world after the pandemics, or working along with the nature, but not against it. These events presents all of us with an opportunity to respond and help prevent and prepare for the future shocks with new modalities that go beyond the status. The separation of the health and environmental policy is a dangerous delusion that we cannot accept. Our health entirely depends on the climate and the other organisms we share the planet with. If we blend taking a hard line against transnational organized wildlife crimes while also opening up new opportunities for local communities, then we will see biodiversity, ecosystem, and communities thrive together. To help prevent further outbreaks of the genetic viruses like COVID-19, the illegal wildlife trades and the destruction of the habitats must stop. Next slide. The next slide will be discussing what can the youths do for the environment. Future generation will also be affected by the decision taken by the youth, as I already addressed it before, as we need to address the concerns such as depletion of the resources, biodiversity loss, and long-lived radioactive wastage, and several other pollution factors. We can change our lifestyle and bring it or make it nature friendly or eco-friendly. We can make our homes, schools, and youth organizations more friendly by adopting the environmentally friendly practices, recycling of the different materials, as well as preserving resources such as water and the electricity. Engaging youth in the environmental protection not only creates a direct impact on the changing youth behavior and activities, but possibly the influence can be seen on the parents, relatives, families, and altogether being the change in the nations along with each and every community. Along with that, we can switch to the green environment, like we can plant trees around our houses, make clean and green environment, manage the waste we produce, like with using the methods like composting, and reduce, reuse, and recycle, and create a clean and green environment altogether. Let's move to the next slide. I think everyone in some point of the time would like to be a hero. I think everyone has a dream to become a hero and change the world. Isn't it possible? Being a hero does not only mean you are the hero in the movies or of films. You can be a hero in the real life too. The environmental challenges the activists take on, from awareness to planting trees, are as diverse as the heroes themselves. The determination, innovation, and enterprising spirit does the job of reminding you that ordinary people are making an impact every day, and they are the heroes to the environment. Everyone can make a difference using whatever talents they have. The best example of it can be taken as the movement started by the Greta Thunberg, who starting it from the school to fight against the climate change and to take climate actions, which has been a global movement now. This is time for us to take a call for the actions for the young change makers like us who will want to make a sustainable environment. One person can make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for any cause that is important to the environment. It is time for us to think globally and act locally. So let's bring out the eco-hero inside us, as everyone has eco-hero inside us. So stay safe and green cheers. Apology, this is all from my side. Now I'd like my fellow ambassador from Kenya to take it further.
Thank you very much, Kushal. I appreciate the very awesome presentation. I believe our audience must have learned quite a lot of new information, even by all these things you, some of these key important points you've shared. I would like to hand over to, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Philbert Angayo. And then, so like I mentioned earlier, he's passionate about empowering African youth and rural communities and environment, creating environmental awareness and conservation agriculture and governance through innovation, thought leadership. So Philbert, I would like you to join this conversation. I'll be giving you microphone access. Please go ahead, Philbert.
Thank you so much, Abolaji. Thank you, Ikena, and the YouthLead team. I do not know if I'm audible. Am I audible? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I'd like to start, thank you so much. Just a slight correction onto that top slide. I'm from Kenya, not Ethiopia, as has been indicated on a lighter note. Kindly take me to the next slide. But even as that comes, allow me to start by reading just something. A friend of mine just this morning posted on his Facebook. His name is Caleb Wekesa from Western Kenya. He said that, call it, I'll just read verbatim. Call it natural selection. Enjoying this forced closure in my farm, then River Malakisi, the river is called Malakisi, River Malakisi, raging and wreaking havoc on my farm. The region experiencing mixed blessings, good crop season followed by massive destruction from nature. The senior citizens terming it the biggest rains ever recorded since 1961. Could this be evidence of repercussions of massive neglect in conservation? The village housing structures falling and forced evictions by mudslides, expanding wetlands, too many frog creeps, everywhere is just swampy. Now, and he's of course posted photos, images of almost half an acre of a maize plantation has been flattened by havoc that has been wreaked there by the bulging River Malakisi. I'm also a farmer in agriculture based in the western part of Kenya, also planting rice. And just recently, my colleagues from Kenya can bear me witness that we've witnessed a lot of rains that have wreaked serious havoc and people have been relocated. Now, for the very first time, Lake Victoria has actually exceeded the boundaries. It has actually infringed. A lot of water has been pushed back, not pushed back, pushed towards the settlement, the human settlement areas. Now, why are we seeing all this? And why do they have to come at a time when we have the coronavirus pandemic? I want you to ponder on that story and what I've shared, even as we go into the next few minutes as I share this. Now, what I do to create impact, I'd like to start with that. You can see in the photos there, the first photo is planting a tree. This was on the World Environment Day of 2019, which was celebrated on the 5th of June. The second photo was at the first assembly of the UN Habitat at the United Nations complex in Nairobi, Kenya. Of course, the theme for that celebration was Beat Air Pollution. And the other photos also show some activity. We were doing a cleanup exercise in one of the informal settlements in Nairobi. My first point of engagement is climate policy and oversight. And I sit in the Standing Commission of the Interreligious Council of Kenya on Environment and Climate Change. And through that, I've been able to steer policy and inform some of the decisions that are being made on the front of environmental protection. The second point of involvement is mobilization of youth for climate action with the Kenya Platform of Climate Governance, where I'm a member of the Climate Finance Technical Working Group. We were very instrumental in the organization of the Climate Strike edition of Kenya. And of course, we had a number of activities. The third is thought leadership. I play a significant role in leading thought around climate finance and climate change. Not really climate, but climate governance as a whole, where we have done numerous activities together with the Kenya Platform on climate governance. I've also consulted with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and also the UNDP towards the major part of last year. The last quarter of last year, we ran a number of activities, and currently we are in the process of developing a curriculum that will be used to train environmental journalists on reporting. Last but not least is training up the next generation of climate change ambassadors, and this is where the future of climate change advocacy lies. And of course, we hope that governments will take this message seriously and not really a reduction of the efforts that we put towards climate action, but seeing a lot of commitments being turned into action from the governments on the climate protection, environmental conservation and protection front. Take me to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So my drive and passion in involvement in the climate change space started in the year 2016. Of course, I've been a farmer for so long, as you've had me mention, since the year 2013. That is about 7 years ago, and we've experienced mixed seasons. I link this to the story that I gave you at the beginning, where a friend is talking about mixed blessings. We get crops coming from one season, and the next season you find rains coming to wreak havoc in your farms. I've been a victim of that, and I've seen my farms swept actually in the very first season that I planted rice in the western part of Kenya. In the rice planting scheme, I actually lost everything. I wasn't able to to report on any kind of profits made. So having seen the changes in the environment and getting bumper harvest, and the next time you're getting a bad experience, made me develop an interest into some of these climatic changes or seasons that would really render people gainers or losers when it comes to agriculture. And then, of course, in the year 2016, I was selected by the University of Nairobi to attend the United Nations Environment Assembly. That was the second assembly. And as you can see in the photo there, that is a photo of me and the former executive director of United Nations Environment Program. Back then it was called the UNEP. Right now it's called the UN Environment. That was Akim Steiner. He's currently the administrator for UNDP. I met Akim Steiner on the sidelines and we had a very fruitful discussion. He recommended me to attend a high-level panel that was talking about the oceanic sargassum. This is the seaweed. And of course, it connected well with me because coming from the lake region of Kenya, we had the problem of water hyacinth that could engulf the entire lake. Their science would explain a lot to do with the hyacinth. But of course, attending this high-level program as recommended by Akim Steiner also opened my eyes. And through this, I was able to even acquire some mentors. Marine Wara is one person who's also not on this call, but had been invited. She would have loved to also be here and share her details. This is one mentor that has literally walked with me through the journey of environmental protection and conservation. Now let's get into the crux of why we are here. Take me to the next slide, please. Why environmental advocacy? This is the question that we are asking. At a time when there is COVID-19, why should we advocate for environmental conservation and protection? Now, the first statement, which I believe all of us can agree with, is that this is where we live. We don't have any other planet. I attended a meeting sometime last year where one of the speakers was very passionate in making this call that we do not have planet B, we only have planet A. We are aware that scientists are trying to find life in other planets, but ideally we only have one planet. So this is where we live. We need to do everything to protect this planet Earth. The second point there is evidence from nature. We have melted glaciers and depleted ozone layer that has resulted to excessive heating, which has caused global warming. There's a video that I would have loved to share here, but it was too big, by the World Economic Forum, where glaciers have melted significantly. It shows how the transition period of how the glaciers in Iceland and these North Pole regions have seriously melted and have been lost. I quoted some statistics there that in 2014, the global sea level was 2.6 inches above the 1993 average, which was the highest annual average in that satellite record. And of course, the rise continues at an average rate of 1/8 of an inch per year. So, and during that period, from the year 2014 to 2020, how many sea-related or oceanic catastrophes have we seen? For the very first time, Mozambique, a country in Africa, was hit by a very serious typhoon. It was hurricane, I'm not so sure what it was called. We also had, at the same time, Idai hitting the United States coast. So we've seen a lot of evidence from nature as to why we need environmental advocacy. Increased environmental hazards. I'll be very specific to the Kenyan region on this point. And we've had cases where acid rains have been reported in northern Kenya, industrial waste, in Marsabit area. And that has resulted to livestock, the death of livestock, loss of livestock, and we've also seen reduced land productivity as a result of chemical waste that is being dumped without regard for the people who use that land. Increased water levels, I've just mentioned Lake Victoria. Remba and Rikiti Islands have been, water has been able to push people back into further uplands towards the land because the rain has actually consumed a portion of the island as a result of rising because of the flooding that has been witnessed. In Africa, one document that is very particular to us, and this is drawn from the Paris Agreement, is the article on loss and damage. And in Africa, we've seen heavy losses and damages as a result of climate change, flooding, extreme droughts, and loss of livestock, which is actually loss of livelihoods. the entire northern part of Kenya, a significant portion, about 80% is nomadic pastoralist occupancy. And these people have lost livestock as a result of excessive climate activity. So these are some of the reasons that compel us to think about why environmental advocacy is important, especially during our time. Take me to the next slide, please. Now, this is a video. I'm not so sure if it can play on your side, Abolaji. Could you try playing this? It's a very, yes. Kindly just watch, join me in looking at the words. It doesn't have sound. 4 things you should know about climate change and health. These are some of the facts that are being listed. This video is produced by the UNDP and it's very recent. It lists some of the 4 major points. How do we link coronavirus and the emergence of the diseases that we are experiencing to climate change? What is the connection between these two? And these 4 points to me were some of the major points that came out. I want to give credit to my colleague Kushal, who has actually given us a very comprehensive background on the emergence of the coronavirus and being a zoonotic disease, meaning it jumped from animals to the human beings, at least according to the evidence that we already have, that we currently have. That is science. That is what science states. And so to stay healthy, we need a healthy planet. Allow me to just pick a few summarized points from that video that we saw there. Rising temperatures increase the risk of contracting diseases. And how is this? Sometimes the lifespan of diseases are extended. We've had debates as to how mosquitoes, for example, transmit diseases. If you live in a warm or maybe in a temperate environment where some of these insects might not really have a conducive environment to live in, then of course you shall have nature will have benefited you from the possible dangers of contracting that disease. But the rising temperature, these are some of the facts that have been verified by the UNDP, and they categorically state that rising temperatures increase the risk of contracting diseases. Secondly, extreme weather affects access to clean water, thus compromising hygiene. Now, if you look at a situation where the hurricanes have wreaked havoc in particular areas, people's access to clean water will be a major challenge. And you'll bear me witness that a significant portion of the diseases that we face now, or maybe in the 21st century, as a result of sanitation. So unless we have access to clean water and proper hygiene, we will continue to be susceptible to some of these diseases. And of course, we are not ruling out the fact that coronavirus has also been transmitted because of the environment in which it finds itself in. Unreliable weather patterns undermine food security, leading to malnutrition and undernutrition. This is another health-related data, which states that whenever there's a change in seasons that are not favorable to agriculture, that are not supportive to agriculture, food security becomes a major concern, and we are grossly affected. Last but not least is the climate shocks that can impair health systems. And the biggest question I'd want to ask us here is, can we handle natural disasters, especially at this time of COVID-19? We've seen how hospitals, how health facilities, health systems have been overwhelmed as a result of the coronavirus. Now, ask yourself if maybe we were to get, God forbid, if some serious natural disaster was to happen in the US or maybe on the coast of Africa or in Asia, a tsunami, for example, would we be able to handle the two disasters at the same time? Now, when we ask ourselves these pertinent questions, we realize that to stay healthy, indeed, we need a healthy planet. When our planet is healthy, that is the first point that will give us the strength to be able to counter some of the pandemics that we have, like now in the coronavirus situation. Take me to the next slide, please, as we draw towards the close to this. So the question is, why the youth? Why should we pay particular attention to the young people? My colleague Kushal already gave a very compelling case. Allow me to highlight just a few of those. Large population, it is estimated that 75% of Africa's population, this is Africa statistics, 75% of Africa's 1.3 billion are under the age of 35 years. Now, that has a significant information with regard to the present and the future, because these people are in a constant transition period. So youth actually occupy the largest population, not just in Africa, but even globally. As you can see in the map of Africa, right, that we have right there, this is a map that shows youth by the definition of being between the age of 15 to 29 years. Now, a lot of statistics go around this with regard to the portions of the population that are predominantly youth or between those particular age groups. Secondly is unemployment that leads to vulnerability. 60%, again, this is Africa statistics, 60% of Africa's total unemployment is youth, making them soft targets for phenomena like radicalization and bad politics. A young person who is jobless, who has actually hunted for meaningful employment for quite some time, will be an easy target for a politician who is only interested in dishing handouts and having this person become like their foot soldier. Now, not all of these politicians are bad people, but again, if you only have a population that responds to a politician and does the bidding of a politician, then to me, that is a position of danger. A young person should be in a position to discern for themselves that which is right and make value-based decisions when it comes to politics and governance and the issues that affect especially the population. Now, the third one there, we have innovative and in the energy that young people have. Innovations in the 21st century, we have youth activity like the Arab Spring and the global climate action that took place sometime last year. All these were youth-led initiatives. So the youth occupy a very significant position in the activities of this 21st century. Now, the youth are the future. Youth they would be half of the global population by 2030. This is a projection that is given by the UNDP. And some of these resources have been uploaded onto the YouthLead platform. We will upload these statistics so we are able to verify the information. Please take me to the next slide. So we are trying to build a case as to why the youth specifically need to be involved. Now, on the global scene, you are aware that right now, for you to be able to even access funding for projects and initiatives that you're doing, you must at least try and align it to a particular sustainable development goal. The United Nations is very specific about the SDGs. And if your project or initiative is not aligned to any of the 17 SDGs that we have, then chances of you succeeding in the implementation of that activity might not actually be well. So this is a statement that has been made by Dr. Salim Jahan. He is the former executive director, former director of UNDP in charge of the Human Development Report Office. He says this: to a great extent, the world's ability to attain the SDGs by 2030 will depend on the capabilities of the young and the opportunities available to them. Therefore, the Youth Development Index, this is an index that was developed by the Commonwealth, is very particular, stating that the youth are very integral. They play a central position in the attainment of the SDGs now. The 17 of the SDGs each have a particular angle that they are reaching out to. And I want to encourage everyone on this call to familiarize themselves with the SDGs, because that is where the crux of our involvement will fall. Next slide, please. So what are some of the entry points for youth advocacy? We have seen how the coronavirus pandemic has affected our environment, in the fact that both positively and negatively. Kushal, I think, articulated the point where we have seen a regeneration in the environment because the flights are grounded, not so many vehicles are moving. So the environment has been given a breathing space. It has regenerated itself. And Could this be, the question that people are asking is, could this be the result of some of the environmental hazards that we are seeing? Of course, for you to be able to understand exactly where the nexus of that is, you need to understand how the coronavirus came into being, and of course, how the environment is responding to this. The biggest question that we would want to ask is, of course, as we have already seen, would we be able to handle two disasters at the same time as a result of this? That is why we need to take up environmental advocacy with a lot of passion. Now, what are some of the entry points for youth to be involved? Before we share on opportunities, let me just ask this question. Plastic pollution falls in the SDG number 13. This is a soft area that I feel many young people can actually take part in. And let me connect it to marine life and the blue economy, which is SDG 14. They actually follow each other. A lot of plastic pollution cases that we have seen actually end up in the seas. And one statement that a good friend of mine mentioned, talked about, is that when you throw something away, especially a plastic bottle or a plastic container, it does not actually go away. It goes somewhere. When you throw something out of your window, trash out of your window, you think you've thrown it away from your car or away from yourself. It doesn't actually go away. You've simply transferred it from one place to the next. And that is why safe disposal of especially plastics, we need to pay keen attention. Now, the blue economy has received a lot of funding. In the second half of last year, 2019, we saw a lot. Kenya actually played host to one of the biggest conferences on the blue economy, and we've seen other side events and ripple effects of the blue economy being given focus. So young people who want to get into environmental advocacy, the reason why I've pointed to particularly these areas is because there's a lot that we can do about the environment, and you cannot do everything. You can only point yourself to a particular area of passion that you feel you want to make an impact. Now, impact can be made in so many points, but for it to be measurable and for it to be sustainable, you have to narrow it down to a particular area. That is why I'm trying to list some of these particular areas. And the third one there we have is conservation agriculture. This falls under SDG 2. SDG 2 talks about no hunger, zero hunger. And under conservation agriculture, there's a lot that young people can involve themselves in. We will look in the next slide, we will see where people can get funding for these kinds of activities. The fourth one is urban waste management, SDG 6. Waste management, waste can be either solid waste, electronic, chemical waste. Young people can actually come up with innovations that tackle these particular components, be it use of drones to dispose of waste, be it use of technology to track particular waste. Or we have young people across the world who are making briquettes that can be good alternatives to charcoal and coal, use of coal for home use. Now, these are very many good areas that young people can plug themselves in. Last but not least, we have renewable energy under SDG 7, and we have a livable environment and water, sanitation and hygiene, SDGs 6 and 15. Now, if we plug ourselves around some of these SDGs, we will be able to identify areas of activity. Take to the next slide, please. Now, what are the opportunities for youth involvement? There are so many opportunities that we have. I tried to only list a few of them. Of course, if we make good use of our internet, we can be able to find a lot. The keywords there is simply look for climate change funding, climate change scholarship, climate change support, climate change grants. You will be able to find a lot of opportunities. So I was able to list just a few of them. Now, under climate change scholarships for advanced research and study, allow me to just mention Harvard University has a climate change solutions fund, which was established in the year 2014. And we also have the IPCC. This is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They have scholarship programs for study. You only need to apply and develop an interest, make a compelling case. You will be able to get some of this funding. Of course, some of them have very highly refined criteria for selection, but I believe that is why we exist as young people, to convince and to be involved. The second is the grants for campaigns and campaigns for climate action. We have the Adaptation Fund. We have the Green Climate Fund. We have the Food and Agriculture Organization, the UN Environment, the UN FCCC. This is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. These organizations have a lot of information and funding opportunities for youth campaigns and climate action activities. You only need to get a few friends that you can brainstorm with, and we will be able to get significant action. Allow me to move a little bit faster because my time is running. Support for innovations. If you have any innovation, any green innovation, there are so many opportunities as well. I listed just some of them. In Kenya, we have the Green Innovation Fund. I believe these resources will be shared on our website, so you on the YouthLead platform, so you're able to access them. We also have the Sustainable Energy Innovation Fund and the Innovation Fund. We also, this is supported by the EU. We also have the Innovation Fund from the Institute of Sustainable Communities. These are publicly available funds that support innovations of young people. If you have an innovation that you think you can come up with, be it in plastic pollution, in beating plastic pollution, in beating air pollution, in green conservation, whatever it is, you just need to point yourself to the right direction. Climate-related jobs, there are so many opportunities that have come up as a result of NGOs coming in to support climate change and climate work. And there are also climate networks. Specifically for the youth, we have the youth NGOs. This is Yungo. I personally didn't know about this. I only came to learn about it last year when I was looking for funding to attend the Conference of Parties, the 25th chapter. I was introduced to the youth NGOs, which is a platform that is accredited by the UNFCCC. It mainstreams youth voices into the discussions that happen in the COP meetings. Of course, the COP meeting is the Conference of Parties that looks into the implementation of the Paris Agreement. In Kenya, or at the African level, we have the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change. We also had Fridays for Future. Most of us had about Greta Thunberg from Sweden, a young person who was passionate about environmental protection. She came up with Fridays for Future, and this is a movement that has taken up a lot of traction on our campaign and advocacy network. So any young person may want to share information or check out what Fridays for Future is all about. We also have the Green Faith. A number of organizations have come up as a result of climate change advocacy, and they're giving funding, information, and all manner of support to young people. Volunteer opportunities. I didn't want to finish this before I talk about, without talking about volunteerism. Now, some information you will not get until you learn to volunteer. And of course, volunteering without expecting anything in return. I know there is another webinar that we've had about volunteerism, and it's available on the YouthLead platform. We can access those materials. Now, when you volunteer with climate NGOs and initiatives, you increase your employability and you broaden your interest in environment. Perhaps maybe your interest area is not in climate change adaptation. Why not go to climate change mitigation? Or why not go into many other components that we have? Take me to the last slide, please. Yes, some challenges and good practice. I will not belabor this. The journey has not been smooth. For some of us in advocacy, the journey has not been smooth at all. And some of the challenges that we've had, personally, I've had unclear pathways. Initially, when I was beginning, I wasn't so sure what it is that I was doing. And sometimes you also lack funding or even a stipend to be able to sustain yourself, especially when you end up working as a volunteer. Also lack of mentors, and sometimes you write proposals and you send them and there is no feedback. These are some of the activities, some of the occurrences that might make people get dejected. But despite all the odds, we are advised to, take passion. So allow me to share with the participants some of the quotes that I find strength in my journey going forward that I believe somebody else can also learn from. Well, for you to become successful, one of the good practices that I've encountered in this journey in climate change advocacy, you must network and have collective responsibility, collaborate with other people. There's a statement here that was attributed to former US Vice President Al Gore, but of course it was also quoted from an old African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, travel with other people. Go together, join up with other people and travel together, and you'll be able to go far. Build networks, collaborate your efforts together, consolidate your efforts together, synergize, and you will find the energy to keep going. Believe in yourself, and of course, first of all, identify your area of interest. Then you can be able to press forward. Now, the Dalai Lama shared a very humorous quote here that if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. You'll be able to know just how small a mosquito is, but also how much impact a mosquito can have, especially when it comes to your sleep. Now, that is the same energy that young people need to have when it comes to making an impact. Nobody is small, no idea is small when it comes to environmental advocacy. And especially at this stage, we've seen a number of governments and funds coming forward to ask young people to come up with innovations that will help in the fight, or that will try to beat the spread of the coronavirus. Why don't you share that small idea that you think you have? However small it is significant enough to make a difference. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. There are no gains without pains. This is attributed to Benjamin Franklin. As a young person, if you want to go far, you have to make a deliberate effort to work extremely hard. Look at your attitude. Have a right mental attitude. Volunteer. You have to read and write articles at some point, and you have to do your research. Now, these are some of the pains that you may want to undergo. We have seen a number of young people saying that, oh, I don't have time to read articles. I don't have time to do this. Now, you really have to spare your time. The same amount of time you spend in reading for an exam is actually the same amount of time you may need to spend for you to be able to develop an interest and become an expert in a particular area. Begin with small steps. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and you'll be able to get to your destination. Let's finish this. Next slide, please. Now, what is the role of YouthLead in all this? How can you leverage the role of YouthLead? I do not want to belabor this point. I believe in the wrapping up, Abolaji or Ikenna will give us how we can be able to join YouthLead. But for me as a person, I've been able to build new networks across the globe as a result of joining YouthLead. I've developed a habit of studying, leveraging the platform's resources. I've also made new friends and passion. We just led this webinar together with my colleague Kushal from Nepal. This is a network. I wouldn't have met Kushal if not for YouthLead platform, and we wouldn't have had a shared interest area like the environment. There are also more opportunities for personal development beyond the YouthLead platform. We can always link up with our fellow professionals, and we'll be able to develop keen interest. So with regard to the COVID-19 and the environment, this is what I feel we might need to know. There's a lot of information right now. Currently, what we say is that there's an information overload. People don't know what information to trust when it comes to the coronavirus and the environment. You do not know what is true and what is not true. The key to knowing the difference is immersing yourself in whatever verifiable and credible resource that you can get. Thank you so much. And we will be able to continue interacting. I don't know whether there's any other slide remaining. Next. Oh, great. I think that's it. Let me hand it back over to Abolaji and Ikenna to lead in this.
Thank you very much, Philbert. And thank you also, Kushal, for this enlightening session. Ideally, there's supposed to be questions, but because of the fact that we have quite unfortunately gotten to the very end, we have depleted a lot of time on this webinar. We're going to close out now, so I'll hand over to my colleague Rachel to close out the webinar for us. All right, Rachel, take it home.
Thank you, Ikenna. And I would just like to mention to everyone online that if you do have questions for our presenters, we encourage you to get in touch with them. Presenters, if you'd like to maybe put in the chat box your contact information or your profile, YouthLead profile link, that would be great. If people do have questions, they can reach out to you later. So I'd like to close out with just a quick information on how you can join and contribute for YouthLead. If you haven't created a profile yet, we encourage you to request to join at youthlead.org. You can complete your profile, post any projects you're working on or leading, contribute to discussions, and you can also earn badges to increase your visibility. We also have a monthly newsletter you can subscribe to for updates. And you can also join and share on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook at YouthLead Global. Next slide, please. And we'd also like to thank our various sponsors who are promoting YouthLead to their youth networks and contributing resources, events, and various funding opportunities. Our sponsors offer their expertise, knowledge on topics, and we work with them to organize skill building training webinars for our members. So you'll hear from them, some of them on future webinars. Next slide, please. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you'll join our next webinar. Keep checking the events on youthlead.org for new webinar announcements. And as we said in the beginning, the slides and the recording will be made available to all of you on youthlead.org, and we'll also be sending it to all registrants. So we hope to see you next time. And until then, please stay safe, keep washing your hands, and maintaining social distancing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.